December 2024. Burlington, Vermont. An engagement party is in full swing. 35 people. Champagne flowing. A fire crackling in a restored Victorian home. The bride-to-be takes the microphone. She's radiant. Everyone's smiling. This is supposed to be the happiest night of her life. She calls her future mother-in-law to the front of the room. The woman, 61 years old, widowed for 12 years, walks forward, thinking she's about to receive a toast. Thank you. Maybe a hug. Instead, the bride-to-be looks at her and says something that makes the entire room go silent. I need to tell you the truth about James. James is her late husband. The man she buried 12 years ago. The father of her 3 children. The love of her life. And in the next 60 seconds, everything this family believed about him, his identity, his origins, his entire existence, is about to shatter. Because James Porter wasn't who anyone thought he was. His real name was Dmitri Volkov. He was born in the Soviet Union in 1969. He was smuggled out as an infant through an underground Cold War adoption network. And he lived 55 years never knowing the truth. But his daughter-in-law knew. She'd known for months. In fact, she'd orchestrated her entire relationship, meeting the son, falling in love, getting engaged, just to get into this room. Just to stand in front of this family. Just to deliver a secret that a dying Russian grandmother entrusted to her sister 37 years ago. What you're about to hear isn't a story about deception. It's about a DNA test that connected 2 families across continents. It's about a woman who spent 4 decades searching for a stolen child. It's about a silver cross that held the key to everything. And it's about the moment when love, loss, and fate collided at a Christmas party and changed 3 generations forever. This isn't fiction. The names have been changed, but every document, every photograph, every DNA result, it's all real. My name is Dr. Helena Moss. I'm a family therapist. And this is the most extraordinary case I've ever witnessed. It starts with a simple ancestry test. And it ends with a family discovering they're not who they thought they were. Before I tell you what happened next, do this right now, subscribe. Because what I'm about to reveal will make you question everything you know about your own family history. It will make you want to call your parents immediately and ask questions you never thought to ask. It will change how you look at every family photograph you own. This story gets more beautiful, more mysterious, and more emotionally devastating than you can possibly imagine. Let's begin 6 months before that engagement party with a DNA test that should never have connected. Vivian Porter was 61 years old in December of 2024. She worked as a librarian at the University of Vermont in Burlington. Widowed for 12 years. 3 children, Owen, 38, Grace, 35, and Ethan, 30. If you met Vivian, you'd describe her as gentle, thoughtful, the kind of woman who remembered small details about people's lives, who sent handwritten birthday cards, who made everyone feel seen. Her husband, James Porter, had died suddenly in 2012 from a heart attack. He was only 55. The loss had shattered Vivian, but she did what she always did. She put one foot in front of the other. She raised the kids. She kept the family traditions alive. She made sure James's memory lived on in every holiday gathering, every family dinner, every quiet moment. The Porter family was close. Owen was a civil engineer in Portland, Maine. Grace taught high school English in Boston. Ethan had stayed in Burlington, working as a physical therapist at the University Medical Center. They gathered every Thanksgiving, every Christmas. They texted in a family group chat. They showed up for each other. In March of 2024, Ethan met Natasha Volkov at a medical conference in Montreal. Natasha was 32, a respiratory therapist originally from St. Petersburg, Russia, who'd immigrated to Canada with her parents when she was 17. She was smart, warm, funny in a dry, unexpected way that made Ethan laugh constantly. By June, Natasha had moved to Burlington. By September, Ethan called Vivian with news. "Mom, I'm going to propose." Vivian felt her heart swell. "Oh, sweetheart. I'm so happy for you. I want to do it at Christmas. At the house. With everyone there." Of course. Absolutely. Vivian had liked Natasha immediately when they first met in April. She was different from the other girlfriends Ethan had brought home, more serious, more grounded. She asked Vivian questions about her life, about James, about the family history. She seemed genuinely interested. But there was something else. Something Vivian couldn't quite name. Natasha would sometimes grow quiet during family dinners, watching everyone with an intensity that seemed deeper than normal observation.
"That's impossible," Vivian whispered. "Look at the back." Vivian turned the photograph over. Written in faded pencil, Anya and Dmitri, February 14th, 1969. Dmitri, Irina said softly. That was his birth name. Vivian's legs felt weak. She sat down in James's leather chair. How did you? Irina sat across from her. My sister, Anya, was a pianist. Brilliant. She was studying at the Leningrad Conservatory when she became pregnant. The father was a fellow student. He disappeared when he found out. Anya's family, our family, was ashamed. Unwed mothers were stigmatized. Our parents pressured her to give the baby up. But how did he end up here? In Vermont. There was a program. Secret, unofficial. Babies from the Soviet Union were adopted through underground channels to American families, usually through religious organizations or diplomatic connections. It was rare, but it happened. James never said anything about Russia, about being from Russia. He probably didn't know. Margaret and Robert Porter likely never told him the full truth. They may have been told to keep it secret. Vivian's mind was reeling. Why are you telling me this now? Why didn't you come forward when he was alive? Irina's eyes filled with tears. Because I didn't know where he was. Anya searched for years. She wrote letters, made inquiries, contacted adoption agencies. Nothing. The trail was cold. In 1987, she died of pneumonia. She was only 38. She died never knowing what happened to her son. And you? I kept searching. For decades. When DNA testing became available, I submitted my information to every database I could find. 3 months ago, I got a match. A distant connection. A woman named Claire Porter in Portland, Maine. Vivian's breath caught. Owen's wife. Yes, Claire had done one of those ancestry DNA tests for fun. When I saw the match, I started researching. I found Owen. Then Grace. Then Ethan. And then I found you. Why didn't you reach out directly? Because I wasn't sure. Because claiming a family connection after all these years, especially when the person in question has passed away, seemed cruel. I didn't want to disrupt your lives with something I couldn't prove. So you had Natasha. I didn't have her do anything. Natasha is my niece. When she told me she was dating someone from Burlington, Vermont, I showed her the research I'd done. She recognized Ethan's name immediately. The rest unfolded naturally. Vivian looked down at the photograph in her hands. The baby's face was small, blurry. But the eyes. James's eyes. You said you couldn't prove this. Irina reached into her purse again and pulled out an envelope. These are Anya's journals. Her letters. Documentation of the adoption process as much as she understood it. And this, she pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth. This was Dmitri's. The only thing Anya kept. She unwrapped it. A small silver cross on a delicate chain. She put this around his neck before they took him. She prayed whoever adopted him would keep it. Did James ever? Vivian stood up abruptly and left the room. She went upstairs to her bedroom. To the back of her closet. To a wooden box she kept on the top shelf. Inside were James's personal effects. His watch. His wedding ring. His wallet. And at the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, a small silver cross on a delicate chain. Vivian had found it in James's dresser after he died. When she asked the children about it, no one knew what it was. She assumed it had been a gift from his adoptive mother. She brought it downstairs. Irina took one look at it and began to cry. It's the same one, she whispered. I was there when Anya bought it. At a church in Leningrad. She had it blessed before she gave it to him. Vivian sat down. The two women looked at each other across decades of loss, across oceans and languages and lives that had never intersected until this moment. He didn't know, Vivian said quietly. He really didn't know. I believe you. What do I do with this? How do I tell my children? That's your choice. But they deserve to know where they come from. Who their grandmother was. What she sacrificed. At 9 p.m., Vivian asked everyone to gather in the living room. 35 people settled into chairs and couches, still laughing from the evening, still riding the high of the engagement. Vivian stood in front of the fireplace. Irina stood beside her. I need to tell you something, Vivian said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. Something I just learned tonight. Something about your father. Owen, Grace, and Ethan exchanged glances. Dad was adopted. You all know that. But what he didn't know is where he came from. She told them everything. About Anya. About Leningrad. About the secret adoption. About the Silver Cross. She held up the photograph. This is your grandmother. Your father's birth mother. Her name was Anya Volkova. The room was dead silent. Grace stood up slowly, walked to Vivian, and took the photograph. She stared at it for a long time. She looks like Dad, she whispered. Owen came next. Then Ethan. They passed the photograph between them, studying the face of a woman they'd never known existed. Why didn't he tell us? Owen asked. He didn't know, Vivian said. I don't think his adoptive parents ever told him the whole story. Maybe they were asked not to. Maybe they thought it would be too complicated. Ruth, Vivian's sister, spoke up. I remember Margaret and Robert. They were good people. Private people. They wouldn't have kept this secret to be cruel. No, Vivian agreed. But it's still a secret that deserves to be known. Irina stepped forward. I know this is overwhelming. I know I'm a stranger to you. But I want you to know that Anya loved your father. She never stopped thinking about him. She died hoping he'd had a good life. He did, Ethan said quietly. He had a really good life. Natasha moved to stand beside Irina. I'm sorry, she said to Vivian. I know this wasn't the way you imagined tonight going. No, Vivian said. It wasn't. But maybe it's exactly what was supposed to happen. They spent the next 3 hours talking. Irina showed them more photographs. Anya as a child. Anya at the conservatory. Anya at her piano recitals. She played recordings, scratchy, old audio files she digitized of Anya playing Rachmaninoff and Tchaikovsky. Your father had Russian blood, Irina said. Musical blood. Anya believed music could heal anything. Grace looked at Ethan. You play piano. Badly, Ethan said. But you play. Dad taught you. He did. Owen pulled out his phone and showed Irina a video from 2 years earlier. James at a family gathering, sitting at Vivian's upright piano, playing Moon River while everyone sang along. Irina watched with tears streaming down her face. He has her touch. The way she held her hands. My God, he has her touch. By midnight, the party had transformed into something else. A wake almost. A celebration of a man who'd lived 2 lives without knowing it. An American life and a Russian legacy. Owen made a toast. To James Porter, who was also Dmitri Volkov, who was loved by more people than he ever knew. Everyone raised their glasses. In the weeks that followed, the Porter family began a journey they never expected. Irina stayed in Burlington through New Year's. She and Vivian spent hours going through James's belongings, looking for clues, for connections. They found letters from Margaret Porter to her sister, written in the 1970s, mentioning the adoption agency in New York and the special circumstances we can't discuss. Grace started learning Russian on Duolingo. Owen connected with distant cousins in St. Petersburg through DNA databases. Ethan and Natasha moved their wedding date up. They wanted to get married in Vermont in the spring, and they wanted Irina to be there. In February, Vivian flew to Russia with Irina. They visited Anya's grave in St. Petersburg. They placed flowers and a photograph of James. Vivian stood there in the snow and said he was happy. He was so loved. You gave him a good start, and I promise you, we carried it through. In March, the family received a package from the Leningrad Conservatory archives. Inside were programs from Anya's recitals, newspaper clippings reviewing her performances, and a recording of her senior thesis performance, Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. They listened to it together in Vivian's living room. Grace cried. She was incredible. She was, Irina said. And she lives on. In all of you. When Ethan and Natasha got married in May, the ceremony included a moment of silence for the family members who couldn't be here, but who made this day possible. Vivian wore the silver cross. She'd asked Irina if it would be appropriate, and Irina had insisted. It belongs to this family now, Irina said. To James's children. To his grandchildren. To everyone he touched. Here's what I learned from the Porter family, and from years of helping families navigate complex histories. Identity isn't simple. We are made of layers, the stories we're told, the stories we discover, the stories we choose to pass on. James Porter lived his entire life not knowing he was born Dmitri Volkov. But that doesn't make either name less true. He was both. American and Russian. Adopted and biological. A man shaped by the parents who raised him and by the mother who let him go. The engagement party wasn't ruined by Natasha's revelation. It was transformed. What could have been a simple celebration became the night a family learned where they truly came from. And Vivian? She could have been angry. She could have felt betrayed that Natasha orchestrated the meeting without warning. But instead, she chose to see it as a gift. James would have wanted to know, she told me months later. He would have wanted to meet Irina, to know about Anya. And since he can't, I'm going to carry that knowledge for him. I'm going to make sure his children and grandchildren know their full story. The holidays are supposed to be about family, about gathering together, about honoring the past while building the future. Sometimes, honoring the past means digging deeper than the surface stories. It means asking hard questions. It means making room for complexity. Last I heard, Grace was planning a trip to St. Petersburg in the fall. Owen's daughters were learning Russian folk songs from Irina over Zoom. Ethan and Natasha were expecting their first child, a daughter they're naming Anya. And Vivian? She's taken up piano lessons. She's learning to play the pieces Anya performed. It's slow going, and her fingers don't move the way a pianist should, but she's determined. I want to play for her, Vivian said. At her grave. I want to play the music she loved and tell her that her son was extraordinary. That he built a beautiful life. That he never knew her, but somehow he carried her with him anyway. The silver cross hangs in a shadow box in Vivian's hallway now. Next to it is the photograph of Anya holding baby Dmitri. And next to that is a photograph from Ethan's wedding, 3 generations of Porters standing together, smiling, whole. 2 families, separated by history and geography and circumstance, brought together by love. That's the real story. That's what matters. If this story moved you, if it made you think about your own family history, or if it reminded you that our stories are deeper and more beautiful than we sometimes realize, share it. Tell someone. Ask your parents about the things they've never told you. Because family isn't just who raised you. It's everyone who made you possible. Thank you for listening. I see you in the next one.